Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. Making images float isn't really very difficult. The standard way to do it would be just to take a picture of the background and then take a picture of the subject on a stand in front of that background. The stand can then be removed with a simple mask in Photoshop. But that method doesn't work very well when the background is made up of a dynamic subject like fire or water or smoke. In those cases, a different technique needs to be employed. And that is what I'm going to show you in this video. So let's take a look at what I've got set up so far. Now, in the original image, it was fairly obviously backlit. That is to enhance the effect of the smoke, etc. So at the back here, I have a Profoto D2. This is a mains powered 1000 joule flash head, and I should think this will be used at about 1/30th of its energy. Then coming further forward, I have my camera, which is set up on this tripod, tethered into Capture One software with a 24 to 70mm zoom lens. I will probably be using this at around about the 50mm mark. On the top of the camera here, I have a flash trigger so that I can control and trigger all the flash heads. This is the subject of the photograph. It's a resin cast of a sculptured human skull. Now the idea is that I want to try and make this float about here somewhere in front of the camera with the light being obscured by the skull itself. So you shouldn't actually be able to see this directly at all from the camera's point of view. So in order to do that, what I've actually done is I've attached to the back of the skull a steel bolt and I've put that on with a hot melt glue gun. So if I then support this from the back, from where the bolt is, from here somewhere, then from the camera's point of view, you can't see the attachment. So in order to do that, what I need is some way of putting a rod between the light and the skull. So this is the rod that I'm going to be using. This is a piece of aluminium tube, 15mm aluminium tube, and I've attached it to the front of this mount, which is meant for holding an umbrella on the front of the flash heads. So if I just then put this on this flash head, like this, there we go. This will then give me something that I can attach the skull to. And I can just screw the skull into the end of the rod. And then just tighten up the lock nut when it's in the right orientation. So I think somewhere around there. Like that. Now obviously it's going to bend slightly, but we can take that into account when the whole thing is set up for the camera. So from the camera's point of view, you shouldn't be able to see either the flash or the rod. So I'll just have a look through the viewfinder and see what we've got. Yep, that looks okay. So time to capture a test image. So for the test image, I have the shutter speed set to 1/30th and the lens wide open at an aperture of 2.8. There we are. So just with the house lights, that gives us a bit of an idea. It looks okay. You can't see the flash in the background and you can't see the rod fairly obviously. So with that exercise complete, I'll reset these parameters so that we're ready to use the studio flashes. So I'll set the shutter speed to the sync speed for the camera, and I'll set an aperture of about f16. This will give me a large depth of field. So with these parameters set, now I'll do another test just to make sure that we don't get any contamination from the house lights. There we go, completely black. So with that exercise complete, what I'm going to do now is just turn on the flash at the back and we'll just take a test image. Now if everything is lined up correctly, what we should get in this image is very little of the actual skull showing and none of the flash. The flash is actually set to 30th energy, as we said earlier. So in order to just make sure, what I'm going to do is turn it up to full. And we'll just take another test. There we go, that's the sort of thing that I would expect. What we're actually getting here is you can see some of the dust which is in the air. You can see a little bit of reflection of the stand here. And the skull itself is lit from probably a reflection from the floor and the general surroundings. So the next thing that I'm going to do, just to make it more efficient, is I'm going to put a black cloth on the floor down here. So I'll just lay this out. There we are. So with that in place, we'll just take another image. Yes, and you can see from that the reflection from the floor has now disappeared completely. I go back to the previous one, you can see that the bottom of the chin here was quite well illuminated, and now that has gone. It's worth remembering that the flash at the back is a 1000 joule head, therefore you're not going to need all that energy. If I used it at full power, as it's set at the moment, it would just burn out all the smoke. So I'm going to take it down to about 30th or 5 stops on that flash head. There we go, and we'll just take another image. There, that's the sort of thing that I actually want. You can only just make out where the skull is. So far so good. So now the backlight is all set. What I'll do now is look at actually illuminating the skull itself. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to place a softbox just to illuminate it from this side somewhere. So initially I'm just putting this softbox, which is a 3-foot octabox, about the same distance away from the subject. So it's about 3 foot away from the subject. Right. So just give that a test. So I think that needs to come up in energy. So what I'm going to do is just add a stop to that. And I'm also just going to turn off the flash at the back for the time being. Okay. Yes, that's starting to get there. It probably needs a little more actually, so I'm just going to take it up another stop and we'll just give that another try. Yes, that's starting to come up now. But one of the things that you can see from this image is that with the softbox that far away, the image itself isn't very soft. There are highlights. There's a highlight on the top here. And also you can just about start to make out the stand at the back. You can't see the flash at the back, but you can make out the stand. So a way to solve both of those things at the same time would be to move the flash as close as I can without getting it into the picture. By that means, it will, one, make the light a lot softer and it'll wrap round a bit more. And two, due to the inverse square law, I'll be able to turn the energy down on the flash, still illuminate the subject properly, and yet it won't spill out over to the back. So I'll just move the flash a little bit further in. Let's see how close we can get it before it actually gets in the image. Let me just check that through the viewfinder. No, we're not in there. So we'll just capture that. Now that's brought up the image quite a lot in intensity, and it's changed the actual quality of the light on the face. If I go back to the previous one, that's what we had before. This is what we have now, and it's wrapping round a bit more than we had before as well. But I think at that distance away, this is actually slightly over what I want. So I'm just going to take off some of the energy. So I will just take that down by a full stop, I think. And we'll just give that another go. There, that's the sort of thing I want. Okay, so with this light all set, what I want to do now is just add another light just to highlight the back of the skull here, and also I want to be able to illuminate some of the smoke from a completely different angle. By illuminating the smoke from a different angle, you can actually change its colour. Bizarre, but that's physics. Here we are. So what I have here is another Profoto B1X. This time, out the front of it, I have this Fresnel lens attachment. Now, in order to set this up properly, I'll need just to turn the house lights out. So with the house lights out, I will just turn the modelling light on this unit. And we'll just aim the light at the skull. Now I'm using this so that I can control the beam width which is coming out of this. This will give me an awful lot of control, much more than you would get with a normal reflector. Also, I can make it very, very narrow if I want. If I just wind this all the way in, I don't know whether you can see the effect of that, but it will give you a very narrow, almost parallel beam. I don't think we need to go to that extent, so I'll put it somewhere in the middle. So there, about there somewhere, should do. Okay, I'll just turn the modelling light off, and with that set we can turn the house lights back on. Right, so we'll just give that a try. There, you can see that it's actually caused this highlight on the back of the skull, which is more or less what I wanted. If we go back to the original, this is what we had before, and that is what we've got now. The next stage would be just to do a full test with all the lights on, so I'll turn the one at the back on. There we go. We'll just check the image there. That looks fine. So for the lighting, that's about it. The next thing to do would be to apply some smoke. So for the smoke, I'm just going to use this smoke machine. Just put that in there. That comes with a little remote to operate it, and we'll just plug that in and wait for that to warm up. So now it's warmed up, we'll just give it a bit of a blast and take a test image. There we go, we can see the smoke starting to appear in the pictures. The trick here is to leave an amount of time between each capture to allow the smoke to disperse. There, now in this image you can see what I meant about the way that you light the smoke will change its colour. The smoke which is lit predominantly from behind appears blue, whereas the smoke which is lit predominantly from the side appears white. Now this can be used to good effect to enhance your picture. So let's just carry on, taking a few more. So now I'll just add a little more smoke, and we'll go for a new sequence. And there we go. There's a wealth of material there. So the next stage would be to go into Photoshop and pick the best images and just do the final bit of post-production. So here we are in Photoshop, and from all the images that I captured, I've decided to go forwards with this one. It's got a bit of drama going on in the smoke in the background, and I think this will make quite a nice image. So first thing I'm going to do is just right click on the background layer and just make a duplicate. That way I can always go back should I need to. Right, so one of the things that I think would enhance this image would be just to take the corners down a little. So I'm just going to add another layer, and in this layer I'm literally just going to paint the corners in with black. So I'll make black my foreground colour. Go to the paintbrush. We'll get that a bit bigger, I think. There we are. We'll just ease that in the corners, like so. There we are. I think that will do for now. Next thing I'm going to look at is just have a look at a crop. So I'm going to pick a ratio of 16:9, and then we're just going to rotate the image until it looks about right. So possibly something like that. Yeah, I'm looking at that's quite good. Click on OK. So with those two things done, I think that's about it for this image. That's looking OK to me. Let's make it a bit bigger. There you go. So you can see from this the way that the smoke has sort of enhanced the image, and you can see also that you've got these two different colours. So you've got a deep blue in some places and more of a grey in others. So I think that worked reasonably well. Okay, so that's my take on floating subject photography, and I hope you enjoyed looking at that. If you like seeing these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.